Rolling sound, quiet. Here we go. Beating. 1.67. And starting with and action.
Hi, my name is Tricia Jenkins, and I am a film, TV, and digital media professor at Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. And it is my pleasure today to host a conversation with 3 local filmmakers who all work in the commercial video production area. So the very first thing that I would love for you guys to talk about is just to introduce yourself to the people who are watching at home and tell us maybe a little bit about your production company and the types of brands or companies that you've worked with in the past.
Sure. My name's Beck. I work with I own Two Trees Productions. I'm a director, cinematographer, videographer, producer, jack of all trades, editor. I work primarily with corporate, nonprofit type organizations. Anything that moves on screen, we can pretty much handle. Motion graphics to high concept film, cinematic style productions. Yeah.
Oh, hello. I'm Candace Cooper. I'm the owner and principal at Westsider Media. I mainly produce. Background was in still photography and graphic design, so we also do some motion graphic stuff. I'd say our bread and butter is brand films, commercial motion graphic stuff, and some TV commercial stuff. Some brands that we've worked with, ExxonMobil, Dickies Arena, Texas Health, Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo here locally, just to name a few, and just kind of run the gamut of projects between them. So,
I'm Warren Cook. I have a company called Make Something Beautiful, and we do film, photography, and storytelling. And I'm kind of a creative director kind of thing, and I just love, I guess I love what we do. And we basically have storytelling, and we do big brands like AIG Financial, and we've done Visit Fort Worth, we've done Blue Zones project, but kind of a jack of all trades too, as far as everything. I come from the creative direction background in advertising, and then moved into film. That's more my passion.
So actually, I will have you start with this next question then. So can you tell the people at home like how you got into commercial video production? Is this what you started out wanting to do when you started your career? If it's not, how did you end up here?
I started my career drawing, always creating, making music, designing, anything that I could create, that was my passion. And it started at a young age and never stopped. And then I grew into advertising, and I was a creative director for many years, doing what you think of the big ad agencies doing, the direct mail, the drip campaign, all that kind of world. And then we morphed into a lot of conferences, which morphed into film and stuff that would happen there, and branding the conferences. And then we were filming stuff all over the country. And I just got to a point where I loved the film side of it. And I also just loved the being authentic. Like I saw what advertising to me was doing, and it felt like it was going a way that I didn't care about. So I really loved when I got to sit down and talk to somebody and didn't care about, this sounds bad, didn't care about what the client said, but I cared about what the person said in front of the camera. And that was always the most passionate part for me. So that's how I kind of weaved that way into that world, is I just started doing what I believed in, as far as that, and then that kind of opened up doors.
Candace, what about you?
So started my career as the editorial photographer for an equestrian organization. So traveled all over taking equestrian photos, writing editorial stuff. Got interested in graphic design, took the leap of faith out to be an entrepreneur, and just kind of honestly by watching what the industry wanted, everybody started wanting film and video. So it was, like Warren said, I think at the core, I've always been a storyteller and interested in stories. And from the commercial standpoint, like I'm fascinated with people that are entrepreneurs and business owners. And I think if you look at it the right way and you sit down and cross with the person, that's an interesting story. No matter what they're trying to tell, that's the fun challenge of it. So it's just kind of definitely did not go to film school, did not set out to be on this path, but just kind of evolved into it by being interested in people and interested in kind of expanding the portfolio of how to dynamically tell a story.
What about you, Greg?
I was born on a horse ranch in Colorado. I'll skip a little bit. Through several trials and tribulations, ended up working at an in-house agency for a baseball card company. And this is back in the late 90s. And we were doing promo videos for our products. This is long before YouTube. And I think we were doing some of the first promotional video online. Nobody would look at it. But we got such a kick out of it. And I had been writing screenplays and all that sort of thing. And so my career immediately gravitated right towards production. I love editing. I'm all self-taught. So I love editing. I love shooting. I like the interview concept. And nobody collects baseball cards anymore, so they laid a bunch of us off. And I immediately grabbed a camera, started filming anything and everything from bar mitzvahs to Spanish-speaking car lot commercials to weddings, you name it, anything I could film and edit. And 15 years later, here we are. So still a one-man band, but I think, like everybody else, it is a medium that grabs you, and if you enjoy storytelling or people and learning multiple different areas of discipline, that's something that I think is attractive, and that's probably what drew me to it. So.
Okay. So a lot of my students, when they go to graduate, they feel like they have to move to Los Angeles, or they have to move to New York, or maybe at least Austin if they want to stay in Texas, in order to have a career in film and TV. Obviously, all of you guys have found a way to make Fort Worth your home and to make it, a viable business in video production here in Fort Worth. So can you talk a little bit about what it's like to be a Fort Worth filmmaker and what the DFW area, and really Fort Worth in particular, has to offer, like what you find beneficial or engaging about working in this particular city? Candace, I'll start with you.
Super passionate about this because I lived in Austin before I came here. And I love Austin, but I came to Fort Worth because I felt like it was untapped. And it's grown. I've been here 11 years now, and it's changed and grown immensely since I've been here. I would tell anybody that thinks that they have to move to the coast, you don't have to. I think in any mid-sized town market in America, don't be afraid to start small. You need to start small. Like, you can't walk, you're not gonna walk into Nike at 23 years old and say, I got an idea, here we go. Like, you start small, and don't be afraid to start small with the companies that you approach. One of my biggest clients, we started out doing their annual report as a video, and now we handle basically anything video advertising for them. So I think find a place that you are inspired by, that you like to be in the community, and the environment fits your style, and go with it. There's opportunities everywhere, whether it's might not be something super sexy, like everybody wants to do a car commercial or a sneaker commercial, right? But I think the real creativity is making something special out of something that maybe doesn't look so special to the common person. So,
Warren, what about you?
I love Fort Worth. I mean, I've come from San Diego. I've been here about 17 years, and I was working for the same advertising agency when I came here. And so I kind of just was doing stuff and filming stuff all over the country, and brands and designing and all that stuff. But the fall of 2008, 2009 made me kind of walk outside the door and say, wow, Fort Worth's got some cool stuff. And then I love I started to fall in love with the characters around Fort Worth. And as I started to shoot stuff around the country and started to define like what I didn't like shooting, what I did like shooting, I kind of decided like, I'm going to start shooting stuff. It doesn't matter if it's paying or not paying. Mm-hmm. I'm going to shoot stuff that I believe in the way I want to shoot it. And we started a thing called Fort Worth Funky that we shot characters around Fort Worth, and that just kind of blew up for us because it was putting people in places where, they got to say whatever they wanted to say. There was no agenda. Right. There was no agenda. So when they got to explode and say something totally off base, or not even about whatever, you just felt it. So I say when people, what I love about Fort Worth and the production, the commission was super helpful. One of our first gigs, we said, close down the street. Can we close down the street like a big, and it was near the beginning, I think, when the commission was going on. And Jessica was so helpful of us closing down a street in the middle of downtown. It was winter too, and I remember being stinking cold, and it was a business shot of all these people. But anyways, Fort Worth's been so accommodating here, like to help us and be a part of, this is the coolest city. Love it.
Yeah, good. To kind of riff off of what he's saying is there's plenty of room in Fort Worth. What he produces and what she produces and what I produce can be very different. And there's plenty of room for that. And I think one of the best things about being a filmmaker is you can have a passion somewhere else and be the person that tells that story. And I find Fort Worth has got so much story to it. There's plenty of room. And I want to touch on one other thing. We call ourselves filmmakers, and I used to be a little hesitant to say I'm a filmmaker because I run a video camera or I do videos of talking corporate heads. But the fact is, we use all the same tools. We have the same idea of beginning, middle, end in that presentation. And when you're in Fort Worth, there's so much that accommodates that, and it's very attractive. I like the idea that, yeah, you can start small, and I'd kind of like to stay small. We joke about it once in a while when we produce stuff together. It's like, yeah, I could go do a big agency thing, but man, the people that I'm working with that I really find interesting in this area, I get paid the same. The margins are about the same. I'll stay small and work with that. And I think filmmakers need to focus on what is it that they're going to be passionate about that they can tell stories about, and go where those stories are happening. Don't worry about the coasts. If you want to be in feature film work, you might want to go down there and suffer through it a little bit. That's fine. But if you want to be pulling focus, editing your content, and have a degree of control that you would never have on the coast, stick around or find a small town with a company that's passionate about what they do and tell that story. And
it's also been my impression that the Fort Worth filmmaking community is pretty cooperative, collaborates a lot with other filmmakers, and is not a super cutthroat, competitive community. So that might be an advantage of a mid-sized market as well.
For sure.
The community feel
Absolutely.
of it.
I've worked with many of these people, maybe more than once, and certainly we bump into each other at functions. And there isn't that guarded, well, I'm working with such and such, and I can't really tell you who they are or what they're doing. There's none of that. Hey, I'm working with Lockheed and we're doing these exciting, great, and there's safety in numbers with that too. So yeah, the Fort Worth community is pretty tight in that sense.
That's great. So one of the things that people who are trying to break into the business always fret about is the pitch process. So what kind of tips do you have for people who are sort of new to the pitch process? How do you make a pitch to a client? You don't have to tell us all of your secrets, but if you could give new filmmakers some advice, I think they'd love to hear it. Doesn't matter who wants to go first. Warren, I'll pick on you.
We usually have like a dance routine that we start with, and it's really bad. No, I don't think there is. For us, there's no pitch routine. It starts back with that same passion. Like, you're doing what you believe in, period. Like, for my work, people are coming to us for that. So they're seeing what we do, and they're like, oh, I want to do that. How can we do that? And for us, it's like, yeah, that's what I want to do too. So there's not much for me as far as like that wiggle room of like, what are you trying to pitch? And I always hate that word. I don't know why. Like, that comes back from my advertising agency. How do you pitch it? I think it's starting with the passion project that you find, or lots of passion project. There's always something going on in our office. I'm never not doing stuff, that I just believe in for free.
Well, let me rephrase the question then. So how do you sell a client on your particular creative concept?
I think they see the work we do, they see the passion behind what I believe in, and they gravitate toward that. That's we were just in a big, pitch project, figuring out too, and it's just more just believing in what you do and showing off like why you're doing what you're doing, and why you believe that the storytelling will work this way, because and I'm also just pitching in the way I want to do it too. Like, pitch the way you want to do it, not what you think they might want or what they said. I mean, I've gone through that world where it's like, we need them to talk about technology and put them in the camera. Well, these people don't know about technology. You just put them in the camera, then it's like, you know, you've been there a million times where it's like that. So it's more just telling telling honest truth when you go into what you want to do and what you believe in, what you believe they could be doing, you know.
I'm going to ask you one more follow-up question. So, like, how much of a negotiation are you open to if a client says, I kind of like that vision, but here's also what I really want. And if what they really want is sort of anathema to your vision, like, how much wiggle room do you think there is between a client and a producer? Or is there a stage where you just have to say, I'm probably not your guy?
I think I've been blessed that that's what they look at me and go, this is what we want to do or not want to do. I mean, I would guess that's a little bit like there's just that. I mean, there's some worlds where you go, where's it motion graphics? And there's definitely when we start talking about where do we pivot, what did we do in that time? But I mean, overall, what I'm trying to do and stuff, like as far as them changing stuff, I don't know. Like, I don't feel like, I haven't run across that, so I've been blessed that way. Okay. So.
What about you, Candace? Yeah. I'll try to kind of nerd talk this. I think the first thing that you have to understand as a producer going in that situation is if you're dealing direct with the client, you're probably dealing at least on a mid-level commercial range with a set of people that they don't speak your language, right? Like, I can sit across the table and talk about how awesome this is going to be, how authentic it's going to be, this is going to be amazing, you're going to get your viewers to connect, and it's going to invoke all these emotions. And if it's a bank, just go down the laundry list, it's going to go in one ear, out the other. So I would just say, understand that they don't speak your language and be okay with that, because you wouldn't be in the room if they thought they could do what you do. So you're there for a reason. But just go prepared to be able to explain. And I'm not saying, the video is going to get X amount of views, so let's advertise that over what the cost of video is. So how much is a view worth to you? But just give them some basic black and white of why this is important, how it's going to benefit them. I mean, just understand that they don't think like you do. It's right brain, left brain thing. So you gotta come with your toolkit to be able to put your thinking cap on a little bit and get on their level and understand that's probably what it's going to take to seal the deal.
Yeah. I think often we're not agencies. Often we're seen and we're picked or we're referred, and the client is seeing our work before they really approach us, often, especially in the bigger budget, bigger scope projects. So what do we have? We have a reel, or we have demonstration samples and that sort of a thing. To kind of go back to the core of your question, if a young person is out there doing this, you may not have anything, in which case you need to go develop your look. And that's your reel. That's, the kind of content you're going to cover. If you're going to be an equine, filmmaker or photographer, you need to go out and do this stuff, whether you're getting paid or not. You're like an actor. You need to be working. Doesn't matter what you're doing, but you need to be developing those skills. So the clients will then see you. They see us and they're like, I love the way he told the story of these two people living in town. So they're going to gravitate towards that. But they're also going to look at her, online or however, or through referral, and they're going to say, okay, I've got two different contrasts. And that's how they're going to pick that. What you need to be able to do is, as a filmmaker, you need to understand how to develop story and how to elicit emotion. Any marketer or advertiser will tell you that if you get somebody sold on their emotions or emotionally involved, they're sold. So as a filmmaker, you need to understand what that key is that your client is trying to message out to their audience. So that's a little bit different than going and writing your own screenplay, right, and chasing down financing. You're telling your own story at that point. We tell other people's stories. And sometimes we do that with our own flair. Sometimes, you talked about the negotiation with the client. I'm pretty flexible, but when I go do my narrative stuff and my short films and a music video or something, that is all me. I'm 100% in charge. Nobody gets to really tell me what to do. Different story. When I walk into a commercial client, my ego goes out the window. I'm there to get their message and use my skills to deliver whatever information they need to get out. Because ultimately, if they're not happy, I'm not going to get employed. I'm not going to get that referral. So there's this stepping process that you need to do. And if you don't have a lot of experience, you don't have those skills, you need to start developing those. And that might mean doing it for on the cheap or for free.
I think the most important thing that both these guys said, and Warren, you guys have done an immaculate job, like big fan of your work. But go out like on your own, find something you're passionate about and create this. And I think that has served him obviously super well, that it's like you've got this beautiful body of work that people see that and they come to you and say, that's what I want. So it takes a lot of the sales process out of it. It's like, 100%. And you get to, without having to have a confrontation, you get control because they're coming to you because they've seen the body. So even if you're not working, just find something passionate to create and just keep building that style and that look.
And I guess for me, I've been jaded, when you say like, go this way or go that way with the client, and like an ego, it's not necessarily about ego. I just feel like sometimes it's been like, you don't know what you don't know what you're doing. You've got an idea, and it's like, and because I come from creative direction background, I kind of always look at the big picture of what, it's not one video I'm creating. It's like, what is your branded content, going to be? And they come to you, like when you said they don't know stuff, they don't. So, so I kind of look at it like that, and maybe I am got some jaded world in me, but I do, go right for what I believe in.
I will say that for the experienced filmmakers that do commercial stuff or they do narrative or documentary stuff, I had to take a step back probably 3 or 4 years ago because I was doing a lot of corporate, a lot of stuff. I wasn't doing anything really passionful that was growing me or really showing anything on my reel. I mean, you do 6 years of corporate talking head stuff. Yeah, you're making money and you're cranking and you're doing all these things, but you're not really you're not expanding yourself, which does your clients zero good. So, I mean, there was a concerted effort to go out and, okay, I'm going to write something. I'm going to finish it. I don't care if it's good or not. I'm going to go and try to get this thing completed from beginning to end. I'm going to beg, steal, and borrow to get it made. And I've done this several times, and it does make you acutely aware of your storytelling process and your skills and maybe where you're not so good. Mm-hmm. And okay, I need to work on this. I can't wait to get back on a narrative project just to work on the elicit of emotion. Well, those are the skills that they see in your reel that they then say, oh, I like what he did there. I'd love to attach my brand to that. So as a filmmaker, commercial filmmaker, you still need to be going back to the craft.
It's like the career equivalent of self-care, right?
100%.
Taking some time to be creative and do the projects that interest you.
For sure.
And then you take that renewed passion back to your clients.
Absolutely. It's super important.
I will say one more thing just from the producer standpoint of something that's been really successful for me is they have a tendency, if they want something in particular, if they can't see the forest for the trees, right? And I think it's really helpful to go in and let them see the forest and let them understand that you see the forest. And we're not talking about just this one project. We're talking about building your brand, and here's the potential of what all we could gather. And it's like you got to be able to sell them on the wow part of like, oh wow, this could just opened up a whole new
well, that's the truth. Like leveraging is always the key. What you do, it's leveraging, because you're going out, there's film days, there's editing and all that stuff, but if you can think through the whole project for branding for them, then you're thinking through what you're shooting every day, and you can leverage that. And for the best for them, the best for the, it just makes more sense. So selling them on that, or just believing in that and telling them this is the way to go, I think that's one of the questions coming up. How do you, but that is it. It's like letting them see like the bigger vision.
Yeah. It's another hat you have to wear. I never dreamed that I would worry about buy time or social media. Never thought I'd worry about that sort of thing. You need to be pretty savvy in that. As a filmmaker, a commercial filmmaker, you need to understand those terms. You need to be paying attention to, at least in a casual sense, paying attention to what does 4:3 do for us, or a 1080 by 1080 versus I want to shoot everything in an anamorphic widescreen shot. Well, guess what? That's going to turn off your marketing agencies and whatnot. And you need to be at least willing to, or have the ability to argue back and forth and pivot with those clients on the ability of what's this film going to be used for? How can we multi-purpose it and all those sort of things. So you have to wear multiple hats in that. You know, it's not just being an editor or a shooter or having a really good eye. You know, you need to be savvy in these other areas.
And I think it helps manage the expectation too of, especially people that they've never done video before. It's like you have to manage the expectation of like, this is not going to be a silver bullet. Like we're starting this, but this is a part of a process, and then you have to continue the process. And it just helps because I've had clients before, it's like, well, we did this and we invested all this, and it's like everyone's super excited for the first few months and they're watching the views, and then it's like,
well, you know, the funny thing with that is, to me too, it's like, I've lived that world in the creative direction and the advertising agency, and like a little bit of me just let that go. It's like, I'm not worried about that. Yeah. Like I'm creating you create what you believe in, that you believe that people will connect with. And after that, it's like, it's not in my hands.
Yeah.
You know, you do what you believe in, and after that, it's like,
I'm just ready to sell them another one. It's like, this is why we have to do the next one.
I do like repeat customers.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this too, speaking of pivoting. So obviously COVID-19 has decimated a lot of industries, and the film industry has not been immune from this. So how have you been able to like pivot your business strategies to kind of make it through COVID, or has production just kind of dried up during the pandemic, or?
There was a good 70 days my phone didn't ring. And I wouldn't lie and say that didn't have me greatly concerned. But, you know, that's when I went and started writing stuff and finishing projects and tying up loose ends. I never didn't go to the office. So, you know, I don't know that I pivoted, but I definitely took the time to better myself. And if you're a freelancer, quite frankly, you're going to have a 3-month downturn every couple of years anyway. It just happens. You know, I don't have a marketing arm. I don't have a sales guy. It is just me. It's what I develop on my reel. I maintain good relationships with clients. I communicate with older clients or customers that I've worked with before. And, you know, sometimes you do need to pick up the phone and say, hey, remembering what we did 3 years ago, it's probably time to start talking about that. Are you interested in having me over and we can discuss it? We can do it remotely. We can Zoom. I hate the lack of human interaction, but those are the sort of approach, or that is the approach that I took for it.
What about you, Candace?
I think it's the first time that I've ever sat down and looked at, like Greg, I'm like, okay, what do we got here? Crack the knuckles, pull up the hard drive with the file of all the client lists. And it's like, I've never taken inventory of kind of like what industries my clients are in. And I never realized how weighted my client list was on event venues or large public gatherings. Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, I just never thought about that of like, if something like this happens, that's going to wipe out 80% of my clientele, and then the other 20%, everyone's just kind of locked down. So I think that's been the biggest learning curve that I will do on a more regular basis from now on. And I think I would tell anyone, you can't be everything to everyone. I think the most successful people in this business are razor focused. I think if you're going to do car commercials, you be the car commercial guy. And the ones on the highest level, that's all they do. We've kind of had to do a little bit of everything, but man, it's definitely made me go back and like reach out to old clients that I've kind of gotten away from and just yeah, it's
And to think about portfolio diversification.
yes, exactly. Need to diversify, and apparently plan for other, global disasters, and go through the list of like, all right, so next year, what's going to happen? So might want to rethink any restaurants that I've got on the list.
I think that we are running out of time, so Warren, I'm actually going to skip that question for you. I'm just going to ask you guys, if like in a minute or less, what's the wisest, sagest, no pressure here, the wisest, sagest piece of advice that you would give to people who are looking to get into commercial video production? And Warren, I'll start with you.
Just do your passion. I just believe, do your passion. Find a passion, and shoot and film and do that, and do it the way you want to do it, the way you believe in. And, that is going to fill your soul. At the end of the day, it's going to fill the person's soul that you shot in front of the camera, whatever it is, whatever story, however weird it is, or however cool it is, whatever you're into that you've always believed in, do it. That's what you go for. That is definitely where I'm at, and where I've been just from my, being in the commercial and, advertising world, and coming into this is just focusing on what you believe in. Find those stories that you believe in. I think that's what I would say.
Great.
Don't be afraid to start small. Like I said earlier, with any clients, start small. Offer something small and gain the trust, and just kind of build from there and find your passion.
I will add on to both of those and say, it's never been a better time to learn how to run a camera or edit. YouTube is it. So what I would say is take advantage of that and become really good at being a filmmaker. Take those, be good and disciplined at being a filmmaker, whether it's with your iPhone or with an old 16 millimeter. Be really good at it, be an expert, because that is what will separate you from everybody else with an iPhone. If you're accomplished and you're a master of your craft, you'll stand out.
Thank you guys so much for being here and giving your advice and your insights into commercial video production. And for those of you at home, thank you so much for your attention, and we hope that you enjoy the Lone Star Film Festival.